Have you ever been told by your doctor that your creatinine levels have gone up a bit and felt unsure where to start? After 50, appetite changes, sleep becomes lighter, and fatigue creeps in, but we rarely think about our kidneys. One detail confuses many. Nuts are healthy, right? So why do some burden the kidneys while others help protect them? Is it a myth that all nuts are good? And is the Brazil nut, often hailed as a superfood, always a good idea for those with higher creatinine? Today, I'll show you, in a practical way, which nuts are the most kidney-friendly, which ones to limit, and how to adjust portion sizes and timing to reduce kidney strain. Plus, before the first minute ends, I'll make a promise. By the end, I'll provide a portion guide by age group and 3 simple adjustments that make a real difference in stabilizing creatinine without overhauling your plate. I'm Ayana Blake, and this is Global Health Guide. Subscribe to receive straightforward, science-based guidance to help you care for your health every day. Let's start with a kidney-safe champion, macadamia. It's creamy, has a mild flavor, and, most importantly, contains less potassium and phosphorus per serving than many other nuts. In 28 grams, about 10 to 12 nuts, there's approximately 105 milligrams of potassium and 53 milligrams of phosphorus, modest numbers compared to pistachios or almonds. These two minerals, when accumulated, can overburden sensitive kidneys. Choosing nuts with lower levels is a smart move when creatinine starts to rise. Plus, macadamia is rich in monounsaturated fats, similar to olive oil, that help modulate inflammation and preserve microcirculation, including in the kidney's capillaries, supporting filtration. How to use it without worry. A portion of 10 to 12 raw, unsalted nuts eaten mid-afternoon, about 2 to 3 hours after lunch, provides steady energy, reduces hunger spikes, and is unlikely to disrupt blood sugar, all without putting unnecessary strain on the kidneys. A simple tip enhances the benefit. Store macadamias in a tightly sealed container in the fridge. Their delicate natural oils oxidize with heat, light, and air. Preserving fat quality also preserves the anti-inflammatory effect we're seeking. But Ayana, isn't it just potassium that matters? True, phosphorus plays a role too. Here's a lesser-known point that helps a lot. In plant-based foods, including nuts, much of the phosphorus is in the form of phytate, a molecule our intestines absorb less efficiently. In other words, plant-based phosphorus is less bioavailable than that from dairy or meats, and far less than the inorganic phosphorus in industrial additives. This is relevant for those with declining kidney function, as it reduces the effective phosphate load in the diet. Speaking of smart choices, a common question is, if I need to watch potassium, do I have to cut out all nuts? The National Kidney Foundation emphasizes that many people with chronic kidney disease don't need to restrict nuts and seeds outright. It depends on blood tests for potassium and phosphorus. Still, within the nut family, some are naturally more kidney-friendly, like macadamia and pecans, which tend to fit better when kidney concerns arise. Before we move on, I'd love your input. Have you already adjusted your nut consumption because of your kidneys or creatinine? Comment, I've adjusted, or I'll adjust so I know how detailed to get. Back to practical tips. 2 common questions I get are, how much should I eat? And what's the best time? The full portion guide comes at the end, but here's a principle. Think of nuts as a functional complement, not a meal. For sensitive kidneys, the goal is to gain anti-inflammatory and satiety benefits with the least potassium, phosphorus, and protein load. Small portions spread across the week work better than a large handful in one go. As for timing, mid-afternoon works well for many, as it avoids sugary snacks and stabilizes energy without interfering with dinner. Another key point is preparation. Choose raw and unsalted. Salted versions add sodium, which, in excess, raises blood pressure and accelerates kidney function loss. Avoid processed snack mixes with dyes, flavors, or enhancers. They often hide inorganic phosphorus, the kind most easily absorbed by the gut. For flavor, lightly toast at home on low heat for a few minutes without burning. Worried about gaining weight from nuts? Yes, they're calorie-dense, but they're also satiating. Small portions can replace worse snacks. The rule is simple: swap, don't add. If macadamia comes in, cookies go out. Over time, this protects not just the kidneys, but also the heart, two organs that go hand in hand. Not surprisingly, dietary strategies that reduce inflammation and support vascular health often benefit both. To sum up this start, in the world of nuts, some are indeed safer for those caring for their kidneys. Macadamia leads the pack for its naturally lower potassium and phosphorus, healthy fats, and suitability as a mid-afternoon snack. In the next section, we'll dive into two powerful allies: pecans, which balance moderate mineral content with anti-inflammatory compounds, and walnuts, the only tree nut rich in omega-3 ALA, both protecting kidneys and heart simultaneously. Stay until the end, as I'll reveal the age-specific portion limits and 3 practical adjustments that make your choices much safer. If macadamia is a naturally safe choice, pecans are the reliable ally working behind the scenes. In a 28-gram serving, about 15 to 20 halves, pecans deliver approximately 116 milligrams of potassium, 79 milligrams of phosphorus, and just 2.6 grams of protein, a profile that produces fewer nitrogenous waste products and less mineral load for kidneys under stress. For those craving crunch without overloading on potassium or phosphorus, this matters. Another edge of pecans is their bioactive compounds. They provide gamma-tocopherol, a form of vitamin E, with anti-inflammatory effects, which is valuable for the kidney's delicate tubules, prone to inflammation in early stages of function loss. This isn't about curing anything but reducing silent daily stressors. Plus, like all nuts, pecans' phosphorus is mostly phytate. Remember from earlier? This less bioavailable form tends to raise blood phosphorus less than animal-based foods or processed products with phosphate additives. How to incorporate them? 2 simple ideas: 6 to 8 chopped halves over oatmeal at breakfast, if your potassium allows, or lightly toasted to top sautéed vegetables at dinner. Their mild flavor enhances texture. Golden tip: weigh your portion at least once. What we call a handful varies widely, and the goal is dose control. Now, the vascular star of this guide: walnuts. Among tree nuts, they're unique for delivering significant omega-3 ALA. In a 28-gram serving, you get about 2.6 grams of ALA, a package that reduces systemic inflammation, relaxes blood vessels, and protects the endothelium, the inner skin of the vessels supplying the kidneys. In mineral terms, walnuts provide around 125 milligrams of potassium and 98 milligrams of phosphorus per serving, manageable amounts when the goal is benefits without overload. Why does this matter for kidneys? Chronic kidney disease and cardiovascular disease are 2 sides of the same coin. Inflamed, stiff vessels harm the kidney's microcirculation. Ailing kidneys, in turn, worsen blood pressure and inflammation, feeding the cycle. A food choice that supports both systems at once has double value. Here's a practical use: 7 to 10 halves, 2 to 3 times a week in salads, unsweetened yogurt, if diet approved, or as a soup topping. It's enough to trigger the anti-inflammatory response without overdoing it. What about kidney stones? If you have calcium oxalate stones, extra precautions apply. We'll cover that in the section on almonds and other high oxalate options. For now, stick to the principle. It's not about banning all nuts, but choosing those with more benefits and less risk for your specific condition. A quick reminder from practical guidelines. Many with kidney disease don't need to exclude nuts and seeds just for potassium and phosphorus. Recommendations vary case by case, based on your lab results. Still, when numbers are borderline or you want to reduce risk without sacrificing quality of life, macadamia, pecans, and walnuts are. This self-assessment can shift behavior. Before we wrap this section, 2 quick execution tips. First, prefer unsalted versions. Excess sodium raises blood pressure, the kidney's top enemy. Second, avoid healthy pre-made bars and mixes. Besides sugar, they often contain highly absorbable inorganic phosphorus additives, the kind that spikes blood phosphorus most. For variety, make your own mix at home in individual microportions. Here's the takeaway. Pecans and walnuts expand the safe choices for creatinine management. Pecans add crunch with moderate mineral content. Walnuts bring the omega-3 ALA boost for vascular health, critical when kidneys and heart need to work together. In the next section, we'll explore an outlier often overlooked, chestnuts, almost a near vegetable among nuts, with minimal fat and protein, and a starch type that may benefit the gut, and indirectly, the kidneys. Chestnuts don't play the same game as other nuts. While almonds, pistachios, and even walnuts are high in fat and protein, chestnuts are mostly carbohydrate, and in the right case, that's a kidney advantage. In a 28-gram serving, they have minimal fat and protein, reducing nitrogenous waste production and easing some of the kidney's excretory load. Practically, they behave more like a starchy tuber than a typical nut. But do carbohydrates help the kidneys? It depends on the type. A key concept is resistant starch, a starch fraction that escapes digestion in the small intestine and reaches the colon intact, feeding beneficial bacteria. This fermentation produces short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which reduce inflammation, strengthen the gut barrier, and may lower uremic toxin formation, compounds that, when accumulated, worsen kidney disease progression. Clinical trials and recent reviews suggest resistant starch supplementation improves inflammatory markers and uremic toxin levels in kidney disease patients. In dietary models, natural resistant starch sources and preparations that boost its content have similar prebiotic effects. Where do chestnuts fit? Beyond low fat and protein, research shows chestnut starch can have a high resistant starch proportion under specific cultivation and preparation conditions, enhancing its prebiotic potential. Experimental studies on chestnut starch and technological modifications show increased butyrate and beneficial metabolic effects via the microbiome, signs that, when well integrated, chestnuts can act as a smarter carbohydrate for those sparing their kidneys. How to use them kidney-friendly? Think small and daily. 3 to 4 roasted warm chestnuts as a comforting snack or mashed to thicken a soup. Another idea, cool cooked chestnuts before lightly reheating to serve. Cooling increases resistant starch in many starches, a culinary trick that may improve glycemic response and possibly prebiotic effects. Pair with vegetables and light proteins from your dietary plan. Avoid combining with high potassium sources in the same dish if your labs show elevated potassium. Freshness and safety matter. Buy firm chestnuts without a rancid smell and store in a cool, dry place. Excess moisture spoils them fast. For packaged ones, check the ingredient list. It should only say chestnuts. Glazed or syrup-coated versions add sugar, which doesn't help. Here's a reminder on kidney balance. Not everything generically healthy is healthy for everyone. For those with calcium oxalate stones, for example, reducing high oxalate foods and staying hydrated matters. Stone type changes recommendations, personalize accordingly. 2 near universal practices for kidney protection: control salt, sodium, and avoid ultra-processed foods with phosphorus additives. Both are shortcuts to higher blood pressure and elevated blood phosphorus, 2 villains for kidney function. Use herbs, acids, lemon, vinegar, and light toasting for flavor without heavy salting. Read labels for phosphates and similar additives. If they're listed, steer clear. So far, we've built the good side of your mix. Macadamia for mineral safety and balance, pecans for crunch with moderate potassium phosphorus, walnuts for the kidney-heart axis via omega-3 ALA, and chestnuts as a smart carbohydrate with prebiotic potential. Now, we'll look at the other side. Nuts that need caution, or even avoidance, when creatinine rises, potassium is high, or there's a stone history. That's next, along with the age-specific portion guide and 3 game-changing adjustments. Time to address nuts that warrant a yellow or even red flag when the goal is kidney care. First on the list is the Brazil nut. It's incredibly rich in selenium, an antioxidant mineral, which sounds great. Until you remember that in kidney disease, the body struggles to excrete excesses efficiently. A single nut can contain, on average, 68 to 91 micrograms of selenium, easily more than a day's needs. Regular consumption, even in small amounts, can lead to excess, with symptoms like hair loss, nail changes, and neuropathies. For safety, those with elevated creatinine or reduced kidney function should avoid routine Brazil nut consumption unless explicitly advised by a nephrologist. Next is pistachio. Delicious, versatile, and high in potassium and phosphorus. In 28 grams, about 49 nuts, you get roughly 291 milligrams of potassium and 139 milligrams of phosphorus, numbers that add up quickly for those managing high blood potassium, hyperkalemia, or needing to control phosphorus. Plus, it's easy to overdo, especially with salted, shelled versions that encourage endless nibbling. If you're watching potassium pistachios, especially processed salted ones are not the best choice. Third is the almond. It reigns in the fitness world, but for those with a history of calcium oxalate stones or high stone risk, almonds require caution. A 28-gram serving can contain about 122 milligrams of oxalate, enough to contribute to urinary crystal formation in susceptible individuals. In minerals, it's roughly 208 milligrams of potassium and 137 milligrams of phosphorus per serving. Almond butter, flour, and milk share the same profile, often with additives. If you're prone to stones or have borderline potassium, swap for options naturally lower in oxalate and/or potassium. If I cut these, am I out of options? Simple swaps solve it. For crunch and salads, use raw, unsalted sunflower seeds, low in oxalate, or ground flaxseed, which also delivers ALA, the plant-based omega-3. When you want a real nut, return to the safe trio: macadamia, pecans, and walnuts, always in small portions. Context matters. The National Kidney Foundation notes that not every kidney patient needs to restrict nuts and seeds. It depends on your current potassium/phosphorus levels and overall diet. Here, I'm building a conservative path for those aiming to minimize risk. Now, the most practical part, the age-specific portion guide, as promised. Use this as a conservative guide for most people over 50 managing creatinine, adjusting with your healthcare provider. From 50 to 65 years, kidneys starting to decline, but with good reserve. 25 to 30 grams, about 1/4 cup, of kidney-friendly nuts, macadamia, pecans, or walnuts, 2 to 4 days a week. Spreading it out is better than concentrating. From 65 to 75 years, naturally lower filtration, reduce to 2 to 3 tablespoons per day, 1 to 2 days a week, choosing unsalted versions and prioritizing lower potassium phosphorus options. Use as a meal complement, not a standalone snack. 75 plus or persistently elevated creatinine. Aim for 1 to 2 teaspoons of finely chopped or ground nuts to sprinkle on dishes, avoiding choking risk, excess calories, and unnecessary mineral load. The rule here is micro portions with purpose. Always consult your nephrologist and renal dietitian for personalization, and the 3 final adjustments essential for making this safer. Choose the right form: raw, unsalted, no additives. Phosphate additives are highly absorbed and easily raise blood phosphorus, unlike plant-based phytate phosphorus. PMC spread across the week, small portions on alternate days weigh less on potassium-phosphorus balance than a single large portion. Pair smartly. Avoid combining nuts with other high potassium sources in the same snack if your potassium is high. Maintain proper hydration, especially if you have a history of oxalate stones, and adjust oxalate/calcium in meals per clinical guidance. To wrap up, a balance reminder. Not every healthy food suits every body, especially when kidneys are more sensitive. If you view each nut through the lens of potassium, phosphorus, protein, sodium, and oxalate, your choices become much simpler. The best part? You don't need to eliminate nuts. You just need to know which, how much, and when. This knowledge turns creatinine into a more stable number and brings back peace of mind. Kidneys don't speak, but they react to every bite. Small, consistent choices build big protection over time. I want to hear from you. What swap will you make today? Cutting pistachios, almonds, or adding macadamia, pecans, walnuts in smaller portions? Comment below. If this content helped, share with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel for more practical health tips. Turn on notifications to catch the next posts.